What's up, YouTube? It's Kenny again. Wanted to make a video today to talk about the plan, all right? Because I'm only 3 weeks away from going in and starting on the electrical work, and my mind has been churning. I've been building and rebuilding my Amazon list before I make this order, and I wanted to talk about it. If you're just finding the channel, please hit that subscribe button for me. I'm Kenny. I am a truck driver who is getting ready to take off on van life journey for a while. I've already purchased the van, I've already had mechanic work done to it, and I'm at the stage now where I'm ready to start building. I've purchased all kinds of goodies to install, and now it's time to get the time to install it. I usually stay out about 8 weeks, so it's, time in between spaces to build is long, but here we go. I'm about 3 weeks out, and I've got a lot of thoughts and ideas, and these videos help me to solidify those thoughts. I go back and watch them and think, yeah, that was a good idea, and maybe that's not such a good idea. And yes, guys, I know there's no consistency. I've shaved it off. Sometimes I have a beard, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I got a full beard, sometimes I got a little beard. I tend to play around with facial hair and stuff a lot. Also, no hat. You guys haven't seen the long hair, or at least not in a while. It's getting pretty long. Of course, it's just the top cap. But anyway, yeah, hit that subscribe button, guys. Stick around, because we're going to build some pretty fantastic stuff. Also, as far as the channel goes, I secured a domain name for a website as soon as I changed the name to Yellow Brick Road. I haven't built the website yet, but it'll be yb-road.com. And I put out a call recently for artists, trying to find an artist to work with to do stuff like my logo and potentially stickers and t-shirts down the road if this channel begins to take off, or maybe even if it doesn't, and a local friend of mine named Sarah, she is a phenomenal artist, and she told me some pretty good pricing and she's been wanting to branch out and play around with stuff like this, logos and stickers. She paints, and she's fantastic. So she actually reached out to me today with some preliminary thoughts and ideas. So that's exciting. But like I said, 3 weeks from now, we're going to start on the electrical. And that's really what I want to talk about, because there's really more to it than just installing the electrical. There has to be a lot of thought put into these things. What I don't want to do is what a lot of others I see do, is make a big area where all the electrical is in a big area. I don't really want to do that because, partially I don't want to take up that big of a spot. I'd rather distribute things and integrate them into other things that are going to be in the van. And also because I don't want all of the weight on one side. So I'm trying to put a lot of thought into how this is going to work, how things are going to be set up for the electrical system. Now the problem is that although I have a lot of measurements from the interior, those measurements were taken before I had purchased all this stuff and was really putting a lot of thought into the electrical, and so I don't have all the measurements I need. So I can't really figure out exactly how it's going to work. I've got ideas about how I think it's going to work, but we'll just have to wait and see. The last time I was in town, when I had the van and the mechanic, the plan was to spend a couple of days doing that planning work, but it took them so long in the mechanic that I didn't get a chance to do that. So probably I'm going back into town for home time on the 17th, and I've got some stuff to do on the 18th. And then on that Monday, I'm going to try to take it to the shop, because it does have an engine light that's come on, that the code that it's throwing is a charcoal canister purge valve. That's an emissions thing. It will run fine without it. It's running fine. But I want that done, and I figure probably what happened was that when they had that fuel pump, when they replaced the fuel pump and had the fuel tank out of it, they might just not have plugged something in good enough, because it goes up into that fuel system. That's what it does. It messes with the vapors that come from the fuel system. So something might have just not gotten plugged in well, and if that's the case, fantastic. If not, we'll change the purge valve, whatever we got to do. Like I say, I've got stuff to do that Sunday. That Monday, I'd like to take it into the shop. Hopefully they can just bust out whatever it is, and then that'll give me Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to actually work on the van. Now, the first day I plan to take everything out and put it in the van and move it around and make decisions. I'm going to spend at least most of a day planning exactly how all this stuff's going to go together. I have a lot of ideas about multiple ways that I think it could go together, but what I really want to do is I want to have the battery on and the inverter charger on opposite sides, because they're both very heavy, and I don't want all that weight on one side of the van. The way I would like to see it go together is to have the battery under one side of the bed. The bed / couch has a little bit of an area underneath it, but I'm not exactly sure on the height and if it's going to be enough to accommodate what I need. That's the way I would like to have, is the battery under one side, the inverter under the other side. That distributes the weight along the same plane, and then start building off of that. But if it doesn't work out that way, then so I'm going to do some type of a floor, okay, and that's going to have to be done before I do all this installation. So I can't just do electrical stuff, and I'm going to do the floor differently than the way most people do it. Most people will do the whole floor with plywood and then put flooring and everything over the top of it. I have those 2 spots where the captain's chairs were, and I'm going to use those to really secure down some plywood, but I want to leave my carpet exposed. So what I think I'm going to do is take a piece of plywood and cut it into a U shape so that I have bottom support for everything that I want to connect to it on that opposite side from the doors, and then on the side of where the doors are, I just want the bottom in front of that left side door, and I want to leave carpet exposed in there. And so I've got to get those measurements, get that figured out. Once I figure out where everything's going to be mounted, then I'll have a much better idea, and I'll be able to figure out what the floor layout's going to look like, install the floor, and then once that's done and I've got it all figured out, the electrical should be relatively straightforward to set up once I just figure out where it's all going to go. That's going to be the crux of the matter this time in, is figuring out how it's all going to be laid out and where it's going to go. So in my Amazon list, I've been kind of floundering back and forth on one part of the wiring, but everything else I've got figured out. So the thing about 12-volt systems is that you have to use big wire for it. And so from the battery to we're going to use the Lynx distributor, which is a system of bus bars. It's basically an enclosed bus bar that has fuses in it. And while it is expensive, it makes everything just a lot more simple, and everything all compact into one spot. And everything hooks into there. The battery, the inverter charger, DC to DC charger, solar charge controller, 12-volt electrical system. All of it hooks right into there. So the wire from the battery to the I'm just going to say hub, the wires from the battery to the hub and the wires from the inverter charger to the hub, that's going to be 4/0 wire, and that wire is like as big around as my thumb, big old wire. And so that's very expensive. And then the wires from the charge controller and from the DC to DC charger, that's going to be 2-gauge wire, which is not quite as big. It's still pretty big. The part that I'm floundering over is the run that comes from the battery in the engine compartment to the DC to DC charger. The 2-gauge wire, that's what I've got it set up, is to do 4/0 and then do 2-gauge wire on everything else. It should be big enough to go from the engine bay. But I'm kind of back and forth on it, because some sources that I'm seeing say that 1-gauge wire is better. And I would hate to have to buy 1-gauge wire just for that. I mean, but I may end up doing it. I'm back and forth on it. I should be making that order sometime next week. And that's going to be all of the wire, the lugs, which means the connectors and the tools to crimp the lugs. I've been doing research on what size all the connections are, and the lugs and the shrink wrap and little connectors to hold the wires that come from the engine compartment to the metal on the van. And I just research on research. I've got everything, and including like 8-gauge wire for lighting and sockets, and I've got switch panels, and I've got lighting. So a lot of stuff in that cart. It's less than $1,000, but so once I make that final decision on that wire from the engine bay, then I'll pull the trigger on all that stuff. It's going to be, I don't know, $800, $900, less than $1,000, and that stuff will be waiting on me when I go back in. Can I get the electrical system completed? I don't know, guys. All right, I don't know. I don't know when I build stuff. I don't know like how much wood I'm actually going to have to fuck with before I just start doing electrical, and what other things I might run into that need to be done before I can finish the electrical. But I plan to bust ass on it for, better part of a week. So we'll see how much I can actually get done. I think that's really all I wanted to talk about. There's a lot to how this build's going to go together. And some things that I really have to figure out before I know exactly how to place the electrical. So, like I say, I'm going to spend a whole day really thinking about how it's going to, what needs to happen, where everything needs to go, so that I don't make any stupid mistakes. Because that's just the way my brain is. I like to have things figured out. I'm excited about it. 3 weeks, about 3 weeks from yesterday. 3 weeks from yesterday. So, again, hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment below. Let's do this. I'll see you on the next one.